You're listening to Punisher Waterfowls, the Union 0430 podcast. Brought to you by Real Geese Decoys, the most technologically advanced silhouette decoy on the market. First Light, the best hunting gear on the planet. Go farther, stay longer. And Ducklander Calls, tradition, education, and quality, built to hunt.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Union 0430 podcast. This is episode 195, and oh boy, do we have a gooder today. This is going to be such a great show, and I'll tell you why it's going to be such a great show. Because I've had friends or people that follow this show message us on social media and say, guys, can you get the Jack Miner guys on and talk about what that's all about? Because, you know, for Ontario, we understand what Jack Miner is, and we sort of kind of know the history. But for our friends south of the border, there's a lot of people that don't know about the Jack Miner history and stuff. So this is a great show. So very long-winded introduction. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Real Geese Decoys, First Light Hunting, and Ducklander Calls, and of course the voice of the Union 0430 podcast, Captain Jeff Coates. Welcome Matt and Joe from the Jack Miner. Is it right to call it the Jack Miner Sanctuary?
Absolutely, yeah. It's legally speaking, it's the Jack Miner Migratory Bird Foundation.
There you go.
Locals just call it the Sanctuary or Jack Miners, and most people know it as the Jack Miner Sanctuary.
Yeah, that's the way I've always heard it. But again, right? There's always a legal title or what what the proper name is. So thank you so much for coming on. And I know Matt, Joe, I know you must be busy, but I can tell you that Matt and I have been playing phone tag for about 2 weeks here now, trying to get one another. So I appreciate both of you coming on and carving some time out of your busy day. So this is going to be fun. It really is.
Well, thank you for having us on. And yeah, we're busy. And Matt's super busy. We're all busy here at the Sanctuary. It's a nonstop, exciting roller coaster to work here. We had the dog trials out here all weekend. That was a great thing going on. We had the solar eclipse event here. So there's always something great going on out here at Jack Miners, and we're always busy. But thank you for your time, too, and helping us to talk about the Sanctuary to everybody else.
No, absolutely. And I think, one of the things that I want to hit on, Matt, and you and I talked about a little bit yesterday on the phone, is that, listen, the Jack Miner Sanctuary, it is such a big thing, and it has such an important role, but it can't operate without help from the public, right? And from the volunteers and everybody. And before we get too far into the show, I do want to talk, because you have an amazing giveaway. I haven't bought my sticker yet, but I am buying a sticker because I want that shotgun, really. Listen, I don't mind passing out some money for the Jack Miner Sanctuary, but I'm really looking forward to winning that gun. So I will be purchasing a sticker. So Matt, Joe, can you tell us a little bit about the sticker draw, why you're doing it, and how people can get in on it?
Yeah, so this all started August last year. We were reached out to by Chris Pafoda, a local Weatherby representative. And so now the Sanctuary has joined hands with Weatherby in the fact that we're raffling off 2 Weatherby 18i Deluxe shotguns, a 12 and a 20. Just to be clear, both those guns are won on the same ticket. It's not a first and second prize. It's both guns, same ticket. Oh, wow. So their ticket sales are actually starting to pick up for us quite well lately. We're excited about it. This is our annual fundraiser. It's exciting to raffle off guns to see the direction the Sanctuary has taken. And we find locally, we have a lot of duck and goose hunters that are very excited about this too. And hopefully we can encourage to raise the excitement throughout all North America. To be honest, it would be great for us because we are a privately funded organization. We do get very small amounts of government money for summer students now and then. Other than that, we rely on the people that rely on us to keep us afloat. So that's what the exciting thing about this raffle is. And the way it works is you simply buy a sticker. Show you again. There's our sticker. And then your name is put into the gun raffle. So that works. We do encourage people, though, if they're interested, the sticker's $20. While you're there, become a member of the Jack Miner Bird Sanctuary. It's called Uncle Jack's Flock. Uncle Jack's Flock. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. So that's $30. You spend the $30, you get your sticker with that 30. So it's only an extra $10. Oh. You get 25% off the merchandise. You get updated newsletters, first opportunities at special events coming out in the sanctuary to purchase tickets. So it's a lot of great things for $30. So we encourage people just to upgrade to that.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, because that's 100% what I'm going to do now. And you brought up a really good point there when you said all of North America, because as a hunter, and I don't want to take away from the science side of things and the sanctuary part of it and all the good things, that the sanctuary does, but as hunters, like, come on, the Jack Miner is the holy grail. It is like everybody is chasing that band, and there's a hockey sock full of hunters out there that'll never ever see one. So it is beneficial for all of North America to get in on this, because and let's say it's $30 Canadian, so that's like $2 American. So jump on board and give some money, because it is such a worthwhile cause, and we're going to get into exactly all of the great things that the Jack Miner Sanctuary does. But I am asking all of our listeners, the millions and millions of fans that listen, please go to the Jack Miner website and register and become a member, and let's pump some money into this great establishment, just so that we can continue to benefit from chasing Jack Miner bands for years and years to come. And that's from a hunter side of things. The science side of things, they'll probably be like, let's keep the money coming in and let's not take any geese or whatever. But from the hunting side of things, yeah, 100%. And we talk about it on this show a lot. Whereas hunters, we're some of the best conservationists that are out there, right? So it is, I think, our responsibility to give some money back to organizations like this, because it is because of these organizations that we continue to do what we want to do.
Some of our strongest partners in conservation are the hunting community in this region. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt about that, and, back to the sticker draw, just to take it full circle, 100% of your proceeds go towards the sanctuary and its mission to preserve waterfowl and waterfowl habitat, and to keep us banding birds. A lot of data, a lot of scientific understanding comes from that process, and that is where your money's going to.
Matt, that was a beautiful segue into this next question. Where have been some of the craziest places that people have, recorded finding a Jack Miner band? Do you guys, have any crazy stories?
So some of the craziest stories were way back when. I mean, Jack was getting band recovery letters from as far north as the Baffin Islands when he started.
Wow.
So we've got, if you read Jack Miner and the Birds and his autobiography, he talks about a priest who was positioned in the far north.
Yeah.
And engaging with Inuit tribes in the area who, in their hunts would encounter a Jack Miner band, and they would, go back to the priest and ask what it was that they,
of course,
that they found. And so some of the earliest recovery letters are some of the most fascinating, where it would be described as somebody out on the water or out on a remote island in the far north. You're talking about the doorstep of the North Pole, recovering some of Jack Miner's bands. And Joe's, I'm sure, got some more recent stories of recoveries from far and wide.
Yeah, there's recoveries. So North Carolina, South Carolina, up in Hudson James Bay is the majority of your band recoveries. That's besides the local birds,
Right.
non-migratory ones. Um, but it's amazing to how far they've gone. Far the green teal have gone, mallards, blacks. So we have a great, speaking of the science, we have a great knowledge of where the birds are traveling to. We are currently working with Canadian Wildlife Service, which is new for us. For a while, the Canadian Wildlife Service saw jack miners as just a souvenir band if you recovered one, as not much knowledge behind it. Well, we currently are involved with the University of Windsor.
Okay.
They're overseeing some of our projects. We are now putting on the Canadian Wildlife Service band as well as the jack miner band, which took many years to accomplish. It was no easy feat in itself. We've worked with Michigan State University.
Mm-hmm.
And we've also been in contact with a bander down in Manuel, down in Mexico. So there's some really exciting things going on. We're in the process of applying to get permission to put on a backpack, which is a solar powered sending unit, which gives us all kinds of information. So we're working on that process right now, and we're very hopeful we're successful with that in the near future.
Wow. I want to go back to this Baffin Island thing. And the thing that blows my mind about this is that back then I would think that Mr. Miner wasn't banning a ton of birds, right? Like we're not talking thousands and thousands of birds back then are getting banded. And, and the chance encounter that, back then a local Inuit community harvesting one of those, like the odds of that happening must be just staggering.
Mm. So Jack Miner, his first band that was put on a black duck, he named it Katie in 1909. So this was a duck he encountered more than one time and in more than one season in what we call our North Pond. So it's currently where Jack Miner's original capture net rests in about 1.5 feet, 2 feet of water.
Yeah.
And Katie, was so comfortable with Jack that Katie would eat straight from his hand. And so in 1909, when he saw Katie again, Jack had been reading about amateur scientists south of the border who were dabbling with, the process of banding.
Mm-hmm.
And so he kind of decided in that moment that he would scoop up Katie and bring Katie down into a shop. And he used scissors to scratch his name on a little tiny piece of aluminum with his PO box number, and sort of let Katie on her way.
Mm-hmm.
And it was soon after that Katie was shot in Anderson, South Carolina. And we actually, if you go to our socials, we just highlighted
I've seen it
in our socials, but we have that first band recovery letter that is dated 1910. By the time you hit 1914, I think Jack talks about how he's banded roughly 470 ducks, in that 4-year time frame. And I think the toughest thing for Jack for a while was getting close enough to wild waterfowl in order to capture them, in order to band them. So it was, a grueling process from the time that he founded the sanctuary in 1904, with cars buzzing by or horse and buggies buzzing by and people honking at Jack and teasing him for being a goose farmer.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a far out idea.
Of course it was.
Somebody's going to take their, prime farmland and turn it into a goose farm or a duck farm. But it was a long and steady process of creating the perfect environment with the perfect conditions to attract waterfowl. So you have him purchasing wing-clipped geese and plopping them in his pond and crossing fingers and toes and hoping that they attract migratory waterfowl. But it wasn't until about the 1920s where he was real, the numbers were amplified, and he was starting to see significant progress in the number of birds that he was attracting. So it took a long while. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. To early on in the stages of him pioneering the banding process, yeah, I think it would have been a needle in a haystack, honestly. You may have had a better chance of getting struck by lightning than,
I would think so.
dancing upon a jack miner band.
Wow.
Yeah.
Joe, Matt, when we were talking on the phone yesterday, like Matt had said, you had been with the sanctuary for so long, and an integral part to really the successes of the sanctuary over the past number of years. I shouldn't just say few. From when you start. So first off, how long have you been there, and how have you seen the changes with regards to the hunting community and the support to the sanctuary?
Well, I've been here 37 years.
Oh, wow.
How have I seen changes? When I first started here, tourism was huge in Essex, Ontario, in the fact that tour buses were big, casinos were brand new, giant smorgasbord restaurants were around. So we constantly had tour buses coming through. So our tourism was very high on the market.
Okay.
For us, even though that didn't bring dollars in the door initially, because we are still a sanctuary where everybody comes in the front gate for free. That hasn't changed. So that was really big. As the tourism died off with the buses, the sanctuary kind of died off a bit too. Not in what we were doing, but in the looked at the sanctuary. You and I can both agree, probably with many listeners, that not too many people drive to go see Canada geese anymore because they're on every golf course, they're in every river, they're in every park. Yeah. So it has taken a lot of work on behalf of the Jack Miners Board of Directors, as well as our staff, to try and, lack of a better word, reintroduce the sanctuary to the general public. I can say this: COVID was actually good for the sanctuary because it pushed people outside. So it encouraged people to come to the sanctuary, and a lot of those people still visit us all the time, which is great. You asked about the hunting community. We have a very strong local hunting community that donates a lot of time here volunteering with us. Helps us with our banding, helps us with our band recovery letters. So a lot of that manpower / lady power is covered by those key people. We have also had an incredible following from many people down in Kentucky, down in Tennessee. So we've always had some strong followings down in the southern states also. So I would say, if anything, our hunting community is just as strong as it was before, maybe even stronger now that we have the local ties that we've created with Weatherby, with Delta Waterfowl, and all those great contacts. So I'm going to say maybe our hunting community is stronger now than it was before. They definitely support us, which is a wonderful thing. And I think, like I already said, because of COVID, our tourism is starting to come back because people were pushed outside. And now that the travel bus industry has kind of died off, it's a new way to bring people in.
Yeah, I did want to take a moment to just point out right there. So a good friend of the show, Rusty Heron from Heron Game Calls, I believe he does a fair amount of volunteering with the banding program too.
His son also.
Yeah. So it's cool, right? Like you think of this big overarching board of directors and this big institution, but you guys, I don't want to put words in your mouth or nothing, but you guys do rely on the volunteers so much, and it is such a small it's a small community in the grand scheme of things, is what I'm getting at, right?
Well, just to contextualize, I mean, we manage over 400 acres of wetland, grassland, and forest here. Yeah. As well as some farmland. We run on a staff that totals that many numbers. We have six staff, and only 3 are full time. Wow. And our volunteer base is such an asset to us. We probably have I would say 50 to 60 incredibly active volunteers, and our volunteer pool is probably closer to 200 at this point in time. So I the front gate is a revolving door of people, cycling in and out, and people seem to know exactly what our needs are as they evolve. We are lucky in that the volunteers that we get are so incredibly passionate about the mission and the sanctuary and the impact that it has on our community and in the greater community, that we can rely on them to do some of even the worst of jobs.
Of course,
with them knowing full well that they're a crucial component to this giant wheel that has to keep turning in the right direction. So
yeah, absolutely. I know you sort of kind of touched on it, but I want to do a deep dive, and I would really like to be able to educate everybody that's listening. So could you give us a bit of I know you touched on it, but could you give us a bit of the history getting us up to, current day, and then we can sort of talk about what's happening today and what the plans are.
You want me to get started? Yeah. So I'll give you the tour spiel that I
absolutely.
We get field trip kids here all the time. We run private tours. So Jack Miner's story. Jack Miner's born in 1865 in Dover Center, Ohio. He's born to a fairly large family as we would perceive it, but back then there were larger families.
Yeah.
And he was one of 10 siblings. And really early on in Jack's education, he was identified as being a kid who would not succeed. In fact, I think it was by the age of 6, his teacher had sent him home a report card that stated he was, quote, unfit for the classroom. And so John Miner, his father, metaphorically speaking, plucks the pencil from his hand and replaces it with a gun and says to him, Jack, you're going to provide for the family. You're going to learn how to do that. And I need you to learn how to put food on the table. So Jack is honing in on his hunting skills at the age of 6. I'm a father, and I've got a daughter who's 6 years old, and the thought of her with a gun in her hand hasn't happened yet, and maybe in a very controlled environment we'll get there. But Jack is learning how to hunt at 6 and shows a lot of promise in that. Before he's 13, he's a market hunter. He's providing for the family and more. And at the age of 13, they're given the Miner family is given a small plot of land here in Kingsville, Ontario. There's some family connections. And soon after they start to prepare it for farmland, John Miner, Jack's father, realizes that there's a much more valuable resource here than farmland, and that's clay. And he knew exactly what to do with that. Back in Dover Center, he was working for a tile and brick making factory.
Okay.
And so, they start digging holes all over the site. There's clay extraction sites all over what became the sanctuary. And if you're kind of thinking ahead to what it became, the clay extraction sites they soon transformed into wetland. I mean, all of our ponds are the result of that tile and brick making factory. So the Miner family got its name through the manufacturing of bricks. And you pinpoint Kingsville and draw a radius 50 kilometers around the sanctuary, and a lot of the buildings that are built between the 1880s and the 1940s are built with Jack Miner brick. And so, Jack really early on, he took over operations within the factory, and, never shook off hunting as a passion and a means to provide for the family, predating, your modern grocery stores. There's still a need to put food on the table, and Jack was hunting on his land and beyond. And it was around his early 20s that he was also employed by CN Rail as a hunting guide, and he would take business bigwigs from the region, hop on the rails somewhere around the Canberra area, and they would head north, and he would teach people how to hunt moose and bear and everything else. The Miner family came to own a plot of property up there, and that would be a place where he would bring people who were interested in learning how to hunt or to hunt with Jack Miner in his later years. He would bring those people who were well connected with the sanctuary up to that plot of land and do exactly that. And it was around the time that Jack is, sort of in midlife, around the time that he's 40, where the factory is doing well for itself. And as far as he was concerned, a greater power had been providing for him the whole time. You can't understand Jack without understanding the spiritual element or layer to his philosophy. And there was one passage in the Bible in particular that stuck out for him that, and I'm paraphrasing, but that God's creation, that earth is the dominion of man. And he didn't take that as, a free-for-all for exploiting what God had given him. He considered it his responsibility to protect God's creation. And being so familiar with the ebbs and flows of species population, migration, wildlife and habitat in a greater scheme of things. By the time Jack's in midlife, he sort of is able to make strong connections between, human activity and changes in species population. And in particular, he saw hunting as, again, it needed to be a tradition that was a bit more responsible in making sure that it was sustainable, and that the practices of hunting were not going to create conditions where we were going to see massive species extinction.
A conservationist long before conservationist was a thing.
That's it, right? Yeah, we always say, he was conservation before conservation was cool, and he was seeing the direct impact on hunting practices and species decline. One in particular was the bobwhite quail, right, which was plentiful in this area, and not just because of overhunting, but also because of habitat loss.
Right.
We saw that species disappear from the Windsor Essex region, and the Canada goose was to him a really special species in particular because that was the food that provided for him and his family. That is what allowed him to survive when they were struggling in those early years, right? The Canada goose was plentiful. The way I explain it to the kids that show up that who may not have any experience with hunting, or at least observing wildlife. You see one Canada goose, you see many. The flight trajectory is a nice straight path. Yeah. And when you look at the species, it's a large species. It provides a lot of meat to harvest.
Yeah.
And so for him, honing in on the Canada goose was, one part spiritual, right? In that, it is my responsibility to care for it. It's one part ethical in that, there's the conservation side of things that, that every species provides a really important part within a biosphere. And you pull, you change the variables and, you have biosphere collapse. And then there's a moral component there in that, to save the Canada goose was to protect the most vulnerable of society. and that is the poor, right?
Right.
And that goes for any conservation effort as far as Jack was concerned. To conserve species that can be hunted is to protect the poor.
Yeah. It's sort of kind of bit of a, I don't want to make it sound dramatic or anything, but it was at a necessity, right? Like he grew up and provided for his family during a time when the market hunting was a very, very lucrative and big business, especially on the Great Lakes, right? Like anywhere located on the Great Lakes, like that market was massive. So he, at a necessity, he had to take part in that market hunting, and it's pretty cool, and pretty amazing when now that this, because I didn't know this. I didn't know he was born in the States and then came up to Canada. I thought he was a Canadian. But
he was a Canadian. He was a Canadian.
But I thought he was born and raised in Canada. You know what I mean? But to see from his humble beginnings, to see that, you know, at age 6, told, listen, you're not gonna amount to anything, to his family coming north of the border, sitting, and I'm sure there was a bunch of struggles at the beginning, but having a very successful business, him carrying it on and getting to the point where, okay, now I can start the business is doing good. Now I can focus on something else. Pretty amazing when a teacher says you're not going to amount to anything really. And then here we are over 100 years later and still celebrating the work that he's done. It's pretty impressive. I'm not going to lie.
No, absolutely. So yeah, I touched on the wing clipped Canada geese that he had purchased. So year after year, he was seeing progress, and, you know, fast forward to the 1930s, and the way that I explain it, because as Joe rightfully pointed out, the lure and the romanticism of the Canada goose is worn off. But if you consider, you know, around the turn of the 20th century, that the Canada goose is a species that's could probably be listed as an at-risk species. You know, it was susceptible to species collapse. And then to push the clock forward a couple of generations and to come here to the sanctuary during migration, and to look at our grassland where we spread corn out for migratory waterfowl, and to see 30,000 Canada geese parked across the road from the historic house, of a species that 2 generations before you would have been lucky to get close to, is quite a feat. And and just to cycle back to that idea that, you know, somebody at such a young age is being labeled as amounting to nothing, you know, 2 years prior to his death is awarded the Order of the British Empire for the greatest achievement in conservation. That says it all.
Yeah.
That says it all.
That dude, what an amazing accomplishment. Order of the British Empire. Yeah. Not just, you know, the province of Ontario. No, the British Empire, the largest at the time. That crazy. Joe, Matt has eaten up a good 10 minutes of time there, buddy. It's now over. It's your turn. Let's talk about what currently is going on with the sanctuary, and even, I know you touched on you're starting to look into the backpacks and stuff, but some of the future plans and the lofty goals that the sanctuary has for the future.
Well, a big part of it for us, obviously, is the banding end of it. And we're going to continue to band as long as we can. And right now we're doing it with the blessing of the Canadian Wildlife Service, which is wonderful for us. As far as future plans, we are currently working. We've been asked to band black ducks as part of a big educational program. So we're working with that right now. our backpacks we've already quickly spoken about, but we're reaching out farther now. So we've reached out to, and this is just mostly through meeting people at the sanctuary. We've talked to a couple of great people about Boone and Crockett, the other people I've already mentioned, and all those guys, as well as we've talked to people from the Turkey Federation, Safari Club International. So we're doing everything we can to bring Jack Miner's name back into the public eye. That's and awesome. Using our banding as a big part of it. It's created some great relationships with different universities also. We are currently working with even the local towns, whether it be Kingsville, Essex, so on and so forth, in regards to, with some of our research we've done, where may we or should we put the next refuge at if we do need to add some, because of our growing greenhouse area, because of our growing towns. What can we do to help to manage the wildlife areas? And with our research in regards to our banding and the number of bands we put on, and we've even worked with Mississauga, we've worked with numerous different places, even the city of Windsor, in trying to come up with alternatives to goose relocation, and maybe that is the alternative. So that's some of the things. As far as the future goes, we're doing, and I've already said this more than once, the recreation of the sanctuary. Let's reintroduce it. Let's keep people coming out and make it an exciting place to go again. For years and years and years, the sanctuary was always closed on Sunday. Jack Miner's belief was that that's family day. It should be for your family. Well, our family has changed. Often mom and dad both work now, so the only day they get as a family is the Sunday. So that's why we're now open on Sundays, just so we can still accommodate everybody that we can. Of course. With Matt's new programming that we have out there in regards to our educational end of it, that's also exciting for us. We are now, and Matt might have to help me with this, approved by both school boards, and we are currently working on Michigan in the fact that we can now take our Jack Miner educational program and take that right into the school. So if the school can come to us, we can go to the school. We talk about a program called Muddy Waters. We have a program, and this is how cool it is now. We have an actual program where we've created our own compost / municipal dump area. And the kids are going to actually go in there and dig through this and see how things compose, see how things break down. So this is all things in regards to conservation, all things in regards to water quality that we're working on. So we have expanded way past the goose in breaking out in every little branch that we can to try and educate, just to try and help educate young people in regards to conservation.
And just to compliment Joe's comments there. Joe says that COVID was a blessing, and it certainly was. It was also really difficult to pivot during COVID, in the sense that we're located, as you could imagine, in a rural setting, and we did not have high-speed internet, and we have since connected to fiber optics. So looking towards the future, we do hope to bring banding into a virtual 21st century world, and there's no reason why we can't have some of our strong partners and friends from all across the country and in Kentucky and Tennessee observe the process of banding on a regular basis. So we fully expect not only to bring our K through 12 curriculum based programming to kids who can't physically come here to the sanctuary because of accessibility issues or because of how far they are from us, but in terms of engaging with just the Jack Miner fans and enthusiasts and waterfowl enthusiasts who want to experience what Jack Miner has to offer, we do hope that there's a virtual component that we can offer to everyone, in that you can come here and you can do a tour and you can be part of the banding experience from the comfort of your own home.
That's pretty cool. And it's a sign, that the sanctuary is evolving, because I think if I understand everything correct in the way that Mr. Miner, accomplished to where it is today, it was the constant evolution, never being 100% comfortable on where he was today. He was always thinking about tomorrow and always thinking about what else can I do. And Joe, you sort of kind of touched in this whole idea of the compost, the municipal area where kids can come in and stuff. And I think that I don't think anybody listening to this show that this will be news to them, but everything is connected. So within the nature, so it's not just the Canada goose, it's not just the black duck, right? It's having the wetlands, it's stopping one of the biggest things, and I would think this is one of the biggest concerns down in your area and anywhere along the Great Lakes area is the loss of habitat, right? Which is such a major concern these days because you touched on it, like it wasn't overhunting, but that quail that you probably lost because of loss of habitat, right? So interconnecting all of these issues and bringing them into the sanctuary, it's great for the waterfowl species, and then all of the trickle down effects that has. But from an education, like I'm really can't get over how at 6 years old he was deemed, unfit for a classroom, but the man has done so much for education that it almost seems like an oxymoron for lack of a better term. You know what I mean? Like,
no, the world is full of ironies, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Jack stood for more than just the protection of waterfowl. He understood that, he was somebody who could take 10 steps back from a problem and see all of the connections from afar.
Right.
Before he passed, he was writing editorials and feature articles about everything from gardening to sustainable water system practices. He was one of the first to call out water pollution and its impact on not just waterfowl, but
right,
fish populations and such. He was a strong advocate for a multilateral approach to preserving our Great Lakes system, and understood that problem in the same way that he understood the Canada goose not recognizing international borders, in that
right,
there can't be a Band-Aid solution to water pollution on the Canadian side if you don't have buy-in from the Americans,
right?
That problems can be resolved with strong partnerships and by working with those partners. And so your thought also made me think about the need for us to evolve in the fact that we don't have a Jack Miner. When Jack Miner passed away, he passed away with 4,000 speaking engagements that were booked.
Holy smokes.
So you imagine, when Jack used to talk about being away on tour, to engage with the public all over North America, imagine the impact of a guy like that. I mean, I don't know, you crunch the numbers. What is that? Is that 7 years of speaking engagements if he's speaking every single day?
Yeah.
And imagine not just the resources that brings in for the sanctuary, but just imagine how many ears are hearing the message straight from Jack Miner's mouth. He was able to pack Massey Hall in Toronto.
Wow.
Tell me what conservationists can do that today. I mean,
well, and then let's not take away from the fact of how much dedication it takes for him to get up every morning to know that I got to go do this talk again. Because listen, I love doing the things that I do, but there's some days where I'm just like, man, I just don't want to do that. And for him to every morning to know that he was getting up and to do this, like, it is an amazing amount of dedication in order to do that. So, if you do the math on it, like 4,000 speaking engagements it's it's just ridiculous to think about that, right? And hey, listen, this isn't drive to the airport and hop on a jet and touch down 2 hours later,
No.
right? Like this is wow.
Yeah. And yeah, it's so back to that irony, you know, unfit for the classroom and you know, in his later years, you know, he has the impact
Yeah.
of a team of 1,000 teachers at the rate that he is moving. It's an incredible feat, and it's, you know, it is proof that it was just more than it was a calling for him, you know.
Right.
And I think that, you know, back to that spiritual component of Jack, you know, like he saw it as his responsibility to make those connections for people.
Wow.
And you know, it certainly went beyond banding ducks and geese. But you know, to bring it back to that, between Katie the black duck and his death in 1944, he bans 90,000 ducks and geese. 90,000. And you know, Joe can probably touch on, you know, what is involved in that process, because it's more than just, you know, throwing a wristband around a goose's foot. There's so much to it.
So there we go. Jump into the banding process quickly. We still use the net that Jack Miner used. It is suspended over water. Approximate size is 60 feet by 90 feet long and about 10 feet tall. The simple idea is the old squirrel box idea. It has a pond underneath it. We feed in the water. In a perfect world, all the geese and ducks fly in. We pull the cable, the sides come down. Yeah. Sounds easy enough. It's not that easy. It's not that easy. There's been many nights sitting back in the hide just watching the water and nothing happens. On the same token, we've had many great nights back there. When I first started here, we always caught birds at night and always banded in the morning. And that's the way it worked. And our goal originally was 1,000 ducks, 1,000 geese every year. Right now, we're finding that we're having more luck catching in the morning and banding in the morning. I can't really tell you exactly what's changed. We don't know. At least I don't know. But we still feed the same. We've changed our feeding now. We use some floating platforms as opposed to before we used to sink all our grain.
Right.
A lot of waste in that way. We do our best to play with the dynamics of where the feed is at the sanctuary. So the days we are really serious about banding, we won't feed the front field with corn. We'll feed out back more a couple of days prior and start moving the birds around the best we can. In the process to try and get more birds here, we just created a brand new 14-acre wetland area, and it's still it's almost finished, but it's very nice, and it should benefit us tremendously in regards to holding more birds, more fresh water, and all that on the sanctuary. So the banding process is every single bird now. We do our best to age the bird, sex the bird, and band the bird, and obviously send it on its way. And we deal with banding portals now for all of our information. And it's just, I guess it's called fluency of information back and forth between us, the university, and Canadian Wildlife Service. So now that we're doing double banding, and I say that with one of their bands and one of ours, it has created a whole new information platform that everybody can rely on now, just to go back to see what the history is on each individual bird. And so back in the day, and I'll just tell you a quick story. Back in the day, when computers aren't as used as they are now, people used to call in their bands.
Mm-hmm.
You know where I'm going with
I know where you're going with this.
And so when they called in, I needed 5 pieces of information. I needed to know, was it duck or goose? I needed to know the Bible verse. I needed to know the serial number.
Yeah.
I needed to know where you shot the bird. And I needed your name and address. Well, we sent out a really nice certificate, and often it would happen. I shouldn't say often. Sometimes it would happen. The information would go spelled wrong. So we came about it at the sanctuary to ask everybody to say and spell. So if your name was Tom, hi, I'm Tom, it's Tom.
Yeah.
So this was one lunchtime, and back then we had speaker phones, and a gentleman called me, a Southern boy, and he had recovered a Jack Miner goose. So I quickly gave him the rundown of everything I needed. I asked him to say and spell everything for me, so on and so forth. So we started off that it was a goose, and then he read me off the serial number, and I got the Bible verse. And we got to the point where I needed his name and address. So he gave me his name and he spelled it, and his address. He said it and spelled it. And the last question was, I need to know where he shot the bird. So this Southern boy, and I'm on speakerphone. He goes, I shot that bird in the head. WHEAD head. And I just about spit my soup on the kitchen table. I was trying to shut off speakerphone because I was laughing so hard.
Yeah.
And anyway, so that's just one of the recoveries. But back then, we met a lot of great people because you talked to them on the phone.
Right.
They would call in and say, hey, I'm Bill Ray, and I shot this bird, and so on and so forth. But we've also had this similar situation where somebody will call and say, I shot your bird. I needed that message in my life today. Because I was
amazing
stuff, and they get this message, and it really changes people's lives too. So that's some great stuff also.
And that message is each year we're putting a biblical verse on, just as Jack Miner did. Maybe I can, I don't know if I can zoom in on that.
Yeah. So it says Jack
Yep.
Miner Foundation, Kingsville, Ontario, Canada. Have faith in God. Mark chapter 11, verse 22, jackminer.com. That's very cool.
Yeah. So that's our commemorative band there. And yeah, as Joe said, a lot of those band recovery letters, people get incredibly vulnerable and personal about those moments. So you're not just getting in those recovery letters, the greatest moment for a hunter. You talked about it being the holy grail.
Yeah.
But yeah, you end up, people shed their skin and they show you who they really are in the most intimate of ways, connecting to the passages that they see. And it's special. It's really something else.
It's we have a friend of ours down in Tennessee, and similar story. He was going through a really rough time, and we actually met him in this way. And he shot a Jack Miner band, and he said it changed his entire life. He was thinking of doing some not the greatest things that day.
Yeah.
Anyways, he ended up writing a song about it, and he's a musician down there. Really great song. He was coming home one day, forgot his lanyard on top of his truck, lost all his bands. He was heartbroken. A year later, him and his wife were going to get some tests done at the doctor's. The next door neighbor knocked on the door and said, I found these on the side of the road. Are they yours? And he said he went to the doctor knowing that everything's to be okay because that happened that day.
Wow.
So we get, like Matt said, numerous stories like that.
That is, I don't know, man. Like I'm a very big believer in things happen for a reason, right? Like you are here today because it was planned for you to be here. And like, it was planned for me to be sitting here today talking to you. I don't know why, but there is a bigger thing above us, right? So when I hear stories like that, it just reinforces that idea that I have that everything happens for a reason. And you know what? Who knows? A year before when he lost those, maybe that was the exact reason why he lost them, because somebody knew in a year's time he's going to need that little resurgent Jesus, I can't even say it. It's still I'm still from Newfoundland, fellas. Like I've been living in Ontario. I've been living in Ontario for 20 years, but I'm still a Newfoundlander.
Can't shake it off, eh?
Can't shake it off. No, not at all.
We couldn't tell.
Yeah, no doubt.
You almost had us, Steve.
Yeah, it was funny. It wasn't very long ago, and I went into the grocery store and paid for my things, and I don't know, one of the things that it's very hard for me to shake is when you talk to someone, especially an older lady, is you always refer to her as my love. So when she says, is that everything? The typical response, yeah, that's everything, my love. That would be the typical response for me. And it's very hard for me to shake it because today's generation, you definitely can't say that to because of a whole hockey sock full of reasons. So anyways, I said that to a lady at the grocery store, and she's like, oh my, she said, I love your accent. Where are you from? And I was like, I'm from Saskatchewan. And her eyes just glazed over, and she was like, where? And I was like, Saskatchewan. And she was just like, are you fooling with me? I'm like, yes, I'm fooling with you. But, you know, fellas, so a couple things. We're getting close to that 60-minute mark, and I would love to keep this going, but I know you guys have a very, very busy day. So a couple things. First off, I can't thank you enough for coming on, because you've educated me a ton. I was a very brief, I thought I had a very brief overarching idea of what the Jack Miner Sanctuary was, and you guys blew my socks, because there was a lot of stuff I did not know. So I appreciate you coming on the show, and if you educated me with my little bit of knowledge, I'm sure there's a ton of people that got that's walking away with a lot of new knowledge. So thank you for that. The second part is, you have an open invite anytime that you feel that this forum can help the Jack Miner Sanctuary. All you got to do is message me and say, hey, Dame, we need to come on the show. We want to talk about this.
Thank you.
Free. Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you what I would like to do is, I would like next year, during the banding process, I would like to actually come down and probably do a show down there, and do that. I could be the guy with the camera and talking about the things, because Joe, you're way too busy to be standing in front of a camera and trying to explain all the stuff. So
are you actually saying I don't have a face for camera? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, face for radio, buddy. But like, to take some of that, because I really do think that there is, I know the current generation and the way the world operates right now with technology, I know that there's this common idea out there that people don't care, and they're just caught up in the minute, and everything's got to be done fast, and the technology. But there is still a ton of people that want to know things like this about the Jack Miner Sanctuary, and want to see the day-to-day, the behind the scenes. And like I said, you're busy when you're abandoning. It's not a simple task to do. So to have somebody there and talk through it and interview and sort of be able to put it all together, I would love the opportunity to come down next year and come down for a day or two and capture all that. I think it would be amazing.
That would be wonderful. We will do everything we can to make sure you have enough time to get here.
Yeah.
Going to band. And you touched on it something earlier, and it popped in my head when you talked about all of our volunteers. And you said we rely on the volunteers, and volunteers like Rusty, for instance.
Yeah.
We more than rely on them. We practically survive on our volunteers. We do.
Right.
The manpower, the dedication, their passion for the sanctuary.
Yeah.
We more or less survive on our volunteers as opposed to rely on our volunteers.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And I think an important thing to really set for people to realize is that you don't have to be a waterfowl hunter to volunteer or to, I guess, to fully appreciate what the sanctuary is. It could be any part of the sanctuary, even if it's just logistical support, something, because I am sure, having never been there, but I am sure, regardless of skill, regardless of passion, there is somewhere within the sanctuary that your volunteer hours could really help.
You're 100% right on that. We have everything from people that want to just come work on our trails. We have over 5.5 kilometers of trails that have to be up. We have ponds to take care of. We're doing a brand new redo on our museum, which requires a lot of logistics, which requires a lot of history taking. How do you say that the right way?
Archiving?
Yeah.
So there's a place, everybody. We have a young lady that likes to come in and just clean the house, which is awesome.
Right.
Too. A lot of tourists through, and we have
Jack
another
Miner
lady,
Learning Center.
We have all the china gets changed up now quarterly on the different seasons. So lots and lots of things going on around here. So we appreciate every hour from everybody.
Awesome. Okay, Matt, once more, let's talk about the sticker. Let's talk about some fundraising. Let's get Let's fill
You know
the
what?
coffers.
Joe is the salesperson when it comes to this.
Oh,
and
okay.
Right here. So I'm going to hold it up, and Joe's going to give you the spiel.
All right.
You
Do
ready
it,
for
Joe.
it?
All right, here's a quick rundown. So this is our annual fundraiser at the Jack Miner Sanctuary. We are doing 2 Weatherby 18i Deluxe shotguns. They're gorgeous guns. If you get a minute, go to the Jack Miner webpage, take a look at these guns. They have Jack Miner signature on them. They're a beautiful gun. There will be no more made like this, just the 2. Adam Weatherby put the project together. The tickets are only $20. You buy a sticker. You don't buy a gun ticket. You buy a sticker. We put your name into the raffle. What I'm asking you guys to do, though, if you're going to take the time to send us 20, do me a favor and send us 30. For that $30, I'm going to give you the Uncle Jack's membership. With that membership, you get 25% off whatever you want to buy here, all merchandise. You get early invitations to any special events, early shots at any tickets, and you still get the gun sticker. So you're in the draw for an extra $10.
And early access to commemorative bands.
And early access to the new commemorative bands, which next 2 years were written by Adam Weatherby, I believe.
You got it.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Exciting stuff too.
Amazing. Fellas, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'll give you the last word for anything else that you want to say, and then we'll call her an episode. So over to you guys.
So what I'll say is I'll just reiterate, Joe here, head to our website. If you've got socials, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, formerly Twitter X, go to our socials to keep up with what we're doing. As we constantly evolve, we engage the broader community, and every time you like and every time you share and you bring people into the fold of who Jack was and who Jack stood for, and it all goes to help us achieve that mission of waterfowl protection, of habitat conservation, and to share the legacy of Jack Miner. It is a very important and touching story, and every little bit of those actions help.
I think Matt did a great job wrapping that up, but let me thank you for doing your podcast and helping us be out there with this message and our story and our mission at Jack Miner. So thank you for that. And we will get you here for a banding.
Absolutely.
I'll put a bag over my head or something, but anyways, we'll do it.
No, buddy, that's awesome. And I tell you what, you got a good face, Joe, and I'll make sure I get your I'll just make sure I get your good side when we do it.
It's at the good side, Joe.
Fellas, thank you so much for coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Union 0430 podcast. We're not experts. We will never pretend to be something that we're not. We're just a group of friends that love talking anything waterfowl. Until next time, surround yourself with good people. Big love.